The colony world of Lyra rested on the edge of known space. It was a place where endless green fields touched silver mountains and two moons floated in the skies like watchful eyes. Humans had come here many years ago, not as conquerors but as workers and explorers, sharing the land with the native people who ruled the planet. Among those people was a royal family whose bloodline stretched back for ages, and among them was Princess Elira. Ryan was only a helper on the colony farms. He was young, quiet, and careful with his work. Each morning he carried water, loaded tools, and tended to the crops that grew well in Lyra's rich soil. His hands were often rough from labor, but his spirit remained gentle. While others dreamed of ships and stars, Ryan found peace in the rhythm of planting and harvesting. One afternoon, he was asked to deliver crates of fruit to the city near the royal palace. It was rare for a farm worker to go so far inside, but the overseer trusted him. With a cart filled with golden berries, he followed the stone road until the high white walls of the palace rose before him. Guards watched with silent eyes, their armor catching the sunlight. Ryan lowered his gaze and moved as he was told. When the delivery was complete, he should have left at once, but curiosity tugged at him. As he turned a corner near the palace garden, he heard the sound of flowing water. It was soft, like a song calling him closer. He followed it through an open gate and found himself in a place unlike any he had ever seen. The garden stretched wide, filled with flowers that glowed faintly under the daylight, shifting colors as if they breathed. Tall crystal trees rose above pools of clear water, and the air carried a sweet fragrance. Ryan stood still, afraid to move too far, yet unable to turn away. It was then he saw her. Princess Elira was seated near one of the ponds, her hands brushing the water. She was unlike any human, yet her beauty was gentle, not distant. Her skin carried a pale silver tone that shimmered softly, and her hair fell in smooth waves touched with blue. She wore a light robe of woven silk that shifted with her movements. For a moment, Ryan forgot to breathe. Elira noticed him. Her eyes, wide and bright like polished gems, turned toward the stranger who had stepped into her hidden place. She rose with quiet grace, but instead of calling the guards, she simply tilted her head with curiosity. "You are human," she said, her voice calm, though touched with wonder. Ryan's heart raced. He bowed awkwardly, unsure of what was proper. "Forgive me, Princess. I did not mean to intrude. I was delivering supplies, and I heard the sound of water. I will leave at once." She did not stop him, but neither did she command him to go. Instead, she took a step closer, studying him as if he were a puzzle. Most humans avoid this part of the palace. "Why did you follow the sound?" Ryan hesitated, then answered honestly. "Because it was beautiful. I have never heard water sing like that." Elira's lips curved slightly, almost a smile. Few spoke so directly to her. Most nobles filled their words with formality, never daring to admit simple feelings. She found his honesty refreshing. "Do all humans chase beauty without thinking?" she asked. "Not all," Ryan replied softly. "Only those who forget fear for a moment." For a long pause, neither spoke. The garden was silent except for the flowing streams and the whisper of leaves. Ryan felt he had already crossed a line by being here, yet he could not deny the strange pull that kept him from leaving. At last, Elira turned her gaze back to the pond. "You should not remain. If others see you here, questions will rise. This garden is not meant for strangers." Ryan nodded. "Then I will go. Thank you for allowing me to see it, even for a short time." He turned to leave, but as he walked away, he felt her eyes still on him. Something in that glance stayed with him long after he returned to the farms. He thought of the shimmering water, the flowers that changed colors, and above all, the princess whose presence had silenced the world around him. From that day forward, his heart carried a quiet secret. He had seen the royal daughter not as a distant figure, but as someone alive and real, standing before him in a hidden garden. And Elora, though she told herself to forget, found her thoughts drifting to the human worker who spoke without fear. She had always been surrounded by nobles who bowed, who praised her without meaning, who filled her days with duties she did not choose. But in that single meeting, she had heard words that were simple, honest, and unshaped by duty. As the moons rose that night above the palace and the fields, both of them carried the memory of that chance encounter. Neither knew how fate would twist their paths again, but the first step had already been taken. The next morning Ryan returned to the farms as though nothing had changed, yet something inside him was different. He still lifted baskets, repaired tools, and watered the fields, but his thoughts wandered to the palace garden. Every detail stayed fresh in his memory, the glowing flowers, the crystal trees, the shining water, and above all, the princess who had spoken to him. He told himself it had been a single moment, nothing more. A worker like him had no place near a royal. Still, as the days passed, the memory grew stronger instead of fading. Each time he heard the streams running through the fields, he thought of the song like water in the garden. Each time he saw the silver light of the moons, he remembered her face touched by soft glow. A week later, another delivery order came for the palace. Ryan's heart leapt, though he tried to remain calm. He loaded his cart with fresh fruit and grain, guiding it once again along the stone road toward the high white walls. The guards allowed him inside with the same silence as before. He finished his task quickly, but when it was done, his feet carried him not toward the gate but toward the hidden path. The garden gate stood open as it had the last time. He hesitated, unsure if he dared to enter again. His sense told him to leave, yet his heart whispered to step forward. Slowly, he walked inside. Elora was there. She sat near the crystal trees, sketching patterns into the sand with a small branch. When she heard his footsteps, she looked up, and her eyes widened in recognition. "You came back," she said. Her voice carried no anger, only surprise. Ryan lowered his head. "I should not be here. But I could not forget this place. Forgive me if I offend." For a moment she studied him. Then she set the branch aside and motioned for him to sit at a distance. "If you must return, then do not stand like a thief. Sit, and let us speak." Ryan obeyed, settling on the grass a few steps away. He felt his chest tighten with nerves, yet her calm tone eased him. "What do humans dream about?" Elora asked suddenly. The question startled him. "Dreams? Do you mean in sleep or in life?" "In life," she said. "Among my people, dreams are taught from birth. We are told what path we must walk. But you humans seem different. I want to know what it feels like." Ryan thought carefully before answering. "Most humans dream of freedom. To choose their own path. Some want to see the stars, some want to build homes, some want to raise families. We are not always able to reach our dreams, but still we hold them close." Her eyes softened. "You speak as though freedom is the greatest treasure." "To us, it is," Ryan said. "Even if we are poor, even if life is hard, the chance to decide for ourselves makes it worth living." Elora fell quiet. She dipped her fingers into the pond, watching the ripples spread across the surface. I do not know that feeling. My path was written before I was born. The court decides my lessons, my duties, even whom I will one day stand beside. There is no room for choice. Ryan listened carefully. He had never thought about the life of a princess. From far away, it looked like endless comfort, yet her words carried a weight heavier than his daily labor. You asked about human dreams, he said softly. Maybe yours is hidden. Maybe one day you will find it. Elora turned to him with a faint smile. Perhaps. Tell me more of your people. Do you all work in the fields like you? Not all, he replied. Some build ships, some heal the sick, some teach children. I chose the farms because I like the soil. It feels honest. What you put in, it gives back. She laughed quietly, a sound like bells. You speak of soil as though it were a friend. It is, Ryan said with a smile. It teaches patience. Their words flowed easier after that. They spoke of small things, human songs, alien dances, foods from both lands. Ryan brought up the fruit of the colony, and Elora described the crystal sweets of her people. For a time, they forgot their differences. When the sun began to sink, Elora rose to leave. Before she stepped away, she looked at him once more. Do not tell anyone of this place. If they learn I spend time here with you, questions will rise, and I will have no answer. I will not speak, Ryan promised. She gave a small nod and left through the inner gate, her figure fading among the shining halls. From that day forward, their meetings became a quiet rhythm. Whenever Ryan was sent to the palace, he found his way to the garden. Elora was always there, waiting though she never admitted it aloud. They shared words, laughter, and silence, building a bond that neither had expected. In time, Ryan began to bring small gifts from the farm. A woven cloth dyed with natural colors. A fruit that grew only once each season. Each time, Elora accepted with wonder, as though the simplest thing was more precious than jewels. In return, she showed him secrets of the garden. Flowers that changed color when touched. Stones that sang when struck gently. She taught him small words of her people's language, where colors held meaning deeper than sound. As the moons passed, the garden became more than a hidden place. It became a world of their own, where duty and class did not matter. Ryan no longer saw her only as a princess. He saw a person who longed to choose her own path. And Elora no longer saw him only as a worker. She saw someone who spoke with honesty and kindness, someone who listened without judgment. Yet in the back of their hearts, both knew the truth. The palace was filled with eyes and ears. If anyone discovered their secret meetings, the whispers could turn into storms. Still, neither of them turned away. The bond was already growing, and no fear could erase it. When Ryan returned to the farm at night, he often looked at the stars, wondering how long this fragile peace would last. And Elora, lying in her chamber surrounded by silken walls, closed her eyes and remembered his words about freedom. For the first time in her life, she began to dream of something not written by others, but chosen by her own heart. The hidden garden became a place of trust. Every meeting between Ryan and Elora wove another thread into the quiet bond forming between them. Neither of them spoke of it openly, yet both felt it growing, strong and steady like roots beneath the soil. Ryan often thought about how strange it was. He was only a farm helper, a human working on the edges of an alien city, while she was a princess, daughter of a royal line older than human memory. Still, in the garden, titles seemed to vanish. He did not feel small when he spoke to her, and she did not stand above him as royalty. They were simply two souls sharing stories. One day, Ryan brought a cloth he had woven himself. It was not fine silk or precious crystal fabric, but it carried the deep colors of the colony soil and sky. The threads were dyed with natural plants, blending green, blue, and soft gold. He offered it shyly, afraid it would seem unworthy of a princess. Elora unfolded it with care. Her silver fingers traced the patterns, and her eyes lit with quiet joy. "It is beautiful," she said. "More real than the robes I wear, which others make for me without thought." She pressed the cloth to her cheek, as if to feel its warmth. "Thank you, Ryan. This is a gift I will keep close." Her words filled him with pride. No noble treasure could have meant more than her smile at that moment. In return, Elora showed him the crystal ponds at the far end of the garden. She guided him along a hidden path, where the water shimmered with colors that shifted like a living rainbow. The air was cool and still, and when she touched the surface, the ripples glowed with light. "This is where I come when I cannot breathe inside the palace walls," she whispered. "Here, I can pretend I am only myself, not a princess bound by rules." Ryan knelt beside her, watching the glow. "Then I am honored you chose to share it with me." They sat together in silence, listening to the gentle hum of the crystal water. No words were needed. The closeness between them spoke louder than sound. As the weeks passed, Ryan began teaching her small pieces of human songs. He would hum soft tunes he remembered from the fields, songs workers sang to pass the long hours under the sun. Elora listened with wonder, then tried to echo the notes in her own way. Her voice, clear and soft, gave the songs a new life, as if they belonged to both their worlds. In turn, Elora taught him the language of colors. She showed him how a shift in hue could speak emotions deeper than words. A warm green meant comfort. A soft silver meant hope. A deep red meant longing. Ryan practiced clumsy gestures with light crystals she gave him, and she laughed gently each time he stumbled. Through these lessons, they began to understand each other in ways no one else could. Their worlds were different, yet their hearts found a bridge. Still, both of them knew their closeness was fragile. The garden was safe for now, but outside its walls the palace watched with sharp eyes. Elora's attendants began to whisper about her frequent absences. She told them she sought quiet to study, and they believed for a time, but the risk grew heavier with each visit. One evening, as the moons rose together in the sky, Elora spoke with a troubled look. "My mother has begun asking questions. She wonders why I spend so many hours alone. If she learns the truth, she will not be pleased." Ryan lowered his gaze. "Then perhaps I should stop coming. I do not want to bring you trouble." Her eyes flashed with sudden color, a deep blue that meant sorrow in her people's language. "No. Do not say that. You are the only one who speaks to me as though I am more than a crown. If you leave, I will lose the only freedom I have." Ryan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to protect her from the weight she carried, but he also knew he could not change the world outside. Still, he gave a gentle nod. "Then I will stay, as long as you wish it." Her face softened. She placed her hand near his, not touching, but close enough that he felt the warmth between them. "Thank you, Ryan. That is enough." From then on, their meetings grew deeper. They spoke not only of songs and colors but of hopes and fears. Ryan shared his wish to one day build a small home of his own, where the fields stretched wide and the stars shone clear. Elora spoke of her secret dream to travel beyond her planet, to see the galaxies instead of reading about them in scrolls. You would leave the palace behind? Ryan asked, surprised. If I could, she said softly. If I were free. He looked at her then, not as a princess, but as a young woman longing for a life of her own. For the first time, he dared to wonder if he might one day stand beside her in that dream. As days turned into moons, others began to notice small changes. Elora carried herself with a lighter step, her eyes brighter than before. The queen's advisors spoke of it quietly, guessing she had found some secret joy. On the farms, Ryan worked with more strength, his heart lighter though he spoke little of why. But joy was never without shadow. Ryan knew that the bond between them was like a fragile flame, hidden in the wind. If discovered, it could be snuffed out at once. Still, when he stood in the garden and saw Elora's smile, all fear faded. In that place, surrounded by flowers that glowed and waters that sang, nothing else mattered. And so their bond grew. Not by grand declarations or bold actions, but by the simple gift of time shared in a secret garden. A bond of small gestures, soft words, and the quiet understanding that they had found something rare. Something worth holding onto, even in a world that might not allow it. Life in the palace never stood still. Advisors came and went, courtiers bowed, and attendants moved through the halls like shadows. Every action was measured, every word carried weight. Princess Elora had lived within those walls all her life, but lately the palace felt tighter, as though its walls had grown closer around her. Her secret visits to the garden with Ryan had become the only moments she truly breathed. Yet with each passing day, the risk of discovery grew. Her mother, the queen, trusted her daughter but was not blind. Questions had begun to stir. Elora, the queen said one evening, her tone soft but firm, you spend much time in solitude. I hope your thoughts are not heavy. Elora lowered her gaze. I only seek peace, mother. The halls are crowded, and the voices never end. The garden offers silence. The queen studied her with keen eyes. Silence is a comfort, but it can also hide secrets. Remember, you are heir to a throne. Every choice you make ripples beyond yourself. Elora bowed her head, hiding the flicker of guilt that stirred inside her. She wanted to say more, to explain that the garden gave her more than silence. But she held her tongue. That night, as she lay in her chamber, she thought of Ryan. His words, his laughter, his simple honesty, all of it stood in contrast to the careful games of the court. She realized how much she depended on their meetings, how much lighter her steps felt after speaking with him. Yet she also felt the chain of duty tighten around her. She was a princess, bound by tradition. He was a worker, far beneath her in the eyes of the court. Their bond could never be revealed. On the farms, Ryan felt the same weight in his own way. His life had grown brighter since he first stepped into the garden, but with brightness came shadow. Some of his fellow workers noticed his absences and asked quiet questions. He gave simple answers, but he knew suspicion could spread. One evening, while mending tools after a long day, an older worker named Darren spoke to him. You've changed, boy. Your hands are strong, but your eyes are somewhere else. Be careful. Dreams are fine, but this world doesn't always welcome them. Ryan nodded, saying little, but the words sank into him. He knew what Darren meant. Some lines were not meant to be crossed, and the bond he shared with Elora was one of them. Yet even knowing this, he could not turn away. The next time they met in the garden, Ryan saw the worry on Elora's face. She was seated near the pond, her robe trailing across the grass, her eyes lost in thought. When he approached, she looked up, and her expression softened. "You seem troubled," Ryan said gently. "As do you," she replied. Then she sighed. "The palace grows restless. My mother watches me more closely. She feels a change, though she does not know the cause." Ryan sat across from her. "If it brings you danger, I can stop coming." Her hands tightened in her lap. "Do you think I could bear that? The garden would become only stone and water without you. You are the only one who sees me, not just the crown on my head." Ryan felt warmth at her words, but also a sharper ache. He wanted to promise her the world, yet he had no power to give it. He was only one man, with no standing in her people's eyes. For a time, they sat in silence, the sound of flowing water between them. Then Elora spoke again, her voice softer. "They wish to bind me to a noble from another world. An alliance, they call it. A path for the future of my people. But it feels like a cage." Ryan's chest tightened. He had always known she would be expected to stand beside someone of high rank, but hearing her speak of it made the truth sharper. Still, he steadied his voice. "What do you wish, Elora?" Her eyes lifted to his, shimmering like moonlit glass. "I wish for freedom. I wish to choose. But wishes do not shape thrones." Her words lingered between them. Neither spoke after that, yet both understood the struggle that had begun. Their bond was no longer only about secret meetings in a garden. It was now tied to choices that would shape both their lives. As days turned into weeks, the tension grew. Advisors pressed the queen to make decisions about her daughter's future. Rumors whispered through the palace, claiming the princess had grown restless, perhaps even rebellious. Elora walked the halls with calm grace, but inside her spirit trembled. For Ryan, the farms no longer gave him peace as they once had. He worked harder than before, his hands steady, yet his heart carried the weight of uncertainty. Each visit to the garden brought joy, but also fear that it might be the last. One evening, as they stood beneath the twin moons, Elora's voice trembled. "Do you ever regret stepping into this garden?" Ryan shook his head without hesitation. "Never. Even if it costs me, I do not regret meeting you." Her eyes shone, filled with colors he had learned to read. Hope, sorrow, and longing blended together. She stepped closer, not touching, but near enough that he felt the warmth of her presence. "Then promise me this," she whispered. "No matter what comes, remember these moments. Remember me, not as a princess, but as Elora." "I promise," he said. His voice was steady, though his heart was heavy. That night, when they parted, both of them carried the weight of unspoken truth. Their bond had become more than friendship, more than simple curiosity. Yet the world around them was built on walls that could not be crossed easily. The hidden struggle had begun, not only within the palace but within their own hearts. Elora fought against duty, longing for freedom. Ryan fought against fear, longing for courage. And though the path ahead was uncertain, both knew one thing clearly. They could not turn back. The garden was no longer just a place of beauty. It had become the heart of their struggle, a fragile world where hope lived in secret, waiting for the day it might step into the light. The moons hung high above the palace, silver light spilling across the gardens like a gentle tide. The air was still, carrying only the soft sound of the streams that wound between the crystal trees. Ryan walked the path carefully, his heart pounding louder than his footsteps. Every meeting with Elora felt more dangerous now, yet also more impossible to resist. When he reached the garden gate, she was already there, standing near the pond where they often sat together. The light from the moons touched her silver skin, making her glow softly as though she were part of the night itself. For a moment, Ryan only stood in silence, afraid to break the stillness. "You came," Elora said when she noticed him. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of relief. "I could not stay away," Ryan admitted. "Even knowing the risks." She lowered her gaze, her hands clasped before her. "The risks grow heavier each day. My mother's advisors speak often now of alliances. They name suitors and speak of duty, as though my life belongs to the throne alone. I feel their chains tightening." Ryan stepped closer, though he kept a respectful distance. "You are more than a crown, Elora. You are more than the path they set before you." Her eyes lifted to his, and for a heartbeat, neither of them looked away. Something unspoken passed between them, stronger than words, stronger than fear. They sat together by the water, as they had many times before, but tonight felt different. The silence between them carried weight, a sense that something was waiting to be said. Elora broke the silence first. "Tell me, Ryan. Do humans ever love where they are not allowed to love?" Ryan's chest tightened. "Yes. More often than you might think. Some are separated by distance, some by duty, some by the will of others. Yet even then, the heart does not always obey the rules." She nodded slowly, her fingers trailing through the water. "My heart feels as though it is no longer mine. It beats faster when you are here. It grows restless when you are gone. And yet I know it should not be so." Ryan's breath caught. He had carried his feelings quietly for so long, burying them beneath the soil of silence, but her words drew them out like seeds breaking through earth. He looked at her, his voice trembling but steady enough to speak. "Elora," he whispered, "I wish I could marry you." The words hung in the air, bold and fragile, as if the very garden held its breath. Ryan's heart raced. He feared she would turn away, or that she would see his confession as foolish, a dream too far from reality. But instead, Elora froze, her cheeks flushing with a deep red glow unique to her kind. She turned her face slightly, as if to hide the color, but her voice trembled when she spoke. "Say it again." Ryan's throat felt dry, but he obeyed, his words carrying more strength the second time. "I wish I could marry you." Her eyes met his, filled with a light he had never seen before. She pressed her hand against her chest, as though steadying the beat of her own heart. "No one has ever spoken to me in such a way. Others bow and praise, but their words are hollow. Yours reach me." Ryan leaned forward slightly, his voice low but firm. "I do not speak to a princess. I speak to Elora, the one who taught me colors, the one who listens to my songs, the one who dreams of freedom. If I could, I would choose you above all else." Tears welled in her eyes, not of sorrow but of overwhelming feeling. She looked at him, her lips parted as though she wished to say more, but no words came. Instead, she simply reached out her hand, letting it hover close to his. Their fingers did not touch, but the space between them seemed alive with warmth. "Ryan," she whispered, "I am bound by duty, but in this garden, I am only myself. And as myself, I cannot deny what I feel. I wish the world were different." "The world may not change," Ryan said softly, "but hearts can. And maybe one day, courage will shape a path where none existed." They sat together in silence, the confession settling over them like a fragile but unbreakable bond. The streams whispered, the flowers shifted colors, and the twin moons watched as witnesses. Time slipped away unnoticed. When Elora finally rose, her expression carried both joy and sorrow. "I cannot promise what lies ahead," she said, her voice steady though her eyes shimmered. "But I promise this, you have my heart, no matter what chains bind me." Ryan stood as well, his chest heavy yet full. "And you have mine, always." As they parted that night, the world outside remained the same. The palace still stood with its walls of duty, the advisors still whispered of alliances, the workers still labored in the fields. But within the garden, something had changed forever. The confession had been spoken. No power, no chain, no wall could erase it. It lived in their hearts, a promise stronger than fear. Ryan walked back to the farms with his head lifted, the weight of uncertainty still pressing but no longer crushing. He had spoken his truth, and it had been received with grace. Elora returned to her chambers, her steps lighter than before. For the first time, she looked at her reflection not as a princess bound to duty, but as a woman who had been seen, chosen, and loved. The night passed into dawn, and the world awakened as it always did. Yet for Ryan and Elora, nothing was the same. Their bond had grown beyond silence and secrets. It had taken shape in words, words that echoed in their hearts with every breath. "I wish I could marry you." Say it again. Those words would remain, carried like a flame through the shadows of the path ahead. The days that followed the confession were filled with both joy and unease. Ryan continued his work on the farms, but his heart remained in the garden. Every sunrise reminded him of the princess, every sunset held the memory of her smile. For Elora, the palace halls felt heavier than ever. Though the memory of Ryan's words lifted her spirit, she could not escape the expectations pressing on her from every side. Her mother, the queen, had grown quiet, observing her daughter with more attention than before. Elora's tutors, her attendants, even some nobles whispered among themselves, noting the change in her demeanor. The princess knew their words were not idle. They spoke of alliances and duties, of suitors chosen for political ties rather than hearts. Every day, she felt the weight of a life not yet lived pressing closer. In the secret garden, however, all of that seemed to fade. The trees shimmered with soft light, the streams hummed a gentle song, and Ryan was there waiting. He greeted her with the calm honesty she had come to trust, and in that moment, the world outside the walls no longer mattered. "Ryan," she said softly as he approached, "I cannot promise what the court expects. I do not know if my mother will allow me to remain free, to choose a path for myself." Ryan knelt beside the pond, watching the water ripple under her hand. "Then we will face it together," he said. "Even if the path is hard, I will not leave you." Her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "It is not enough for my heart alone. If I follow it, I could bring shame to my family, disappointment to my people. I am not only Elora, I am their princess." "You are still you," Ryan said gently. "And being yourself does not mean you must hurt others. It means you find courage to do what is right for you, while caring for the people who matter." Elora studied him, her thoughts heavy yet moved by his words. Courage. Freedom. Choice. These were words she had known but never truly understood until she met him. She wanted to step into that light, to take charge of her life, but the fear of the unknown weighed upon her. "I wish it could be simple," she whispered. "Simple or not, hearts cannot wait," Ryan replied. "You have shown me what it means to feel, Elora. That feeling is worth more than fear." She took a deep breath, drawing strength from his presence. "Then I will choose," she said. "Not recklessly, not without thought, but I will try. I will find a way to live as Elora, not only as the princess they expect me to be." Ryan reached out, his hand hovering just above hers, as if testing the air between them. "And I will be by your side. No matter what challenges come, no matter how far the path stretches, I will stand with you." For the first time, a spark of hope blossomed fully in her chest. The future was uncertain, yet it felt lighter than any day she had known. Together, they would face the court, the expectations, the whispers. Together, they would carve a path toward freedom. Days passed with quiet preparation. Elora practiced careful conversations with her mother, speaking of duties and aspirations with polite honesty while protecting the secret of her bond with Ryan. She met with her tutors, learning not only the skills of governance but also the subtle ways to navigate the politics of the court. All the while, she and Ryan met in the garden, speaking of dreams, of possibilities, of a life that could exist beyond the rules. One afternoon, Ryan brought a small model of a home he had imagined. He had carved it from wood, painted it with colors of the fields, and even added tiny windows. "This is for you," he said. "A place where the world does not dictate who you are, only you do." Elora smiled, touched beyond words. She ran her fingers over the miniature structure, imagining herself living in a place like that. "One day," she said softly, "we will build something like this. A place where our hearts are free, where we can choose what to grow, what to love, and who to be." "Yes," Ryan said. "And until that day comes, we will carry the hope in our hearts. That hope is stronger than any wall, any rule, any expectation." The moons rose that evening, silver and gentle over the garden. The air was calm, filled with the scent of flowers and the soft hum of the streams. Elora leaned slightly closer to Ryan, feeling the warmth of his presence. "I cannot promise when the court will accept my choice," she said, "but I promise that I will not let fear rule me. I will find courage, even if the path is long and difficult." Ryan nodded, his own heart filled with quiet determination. "And I will find courage too. You have given me that gift. I will not let the world separate us." Together, they walked along the path that led deeper into the garden, their fingers brushing in small, careful gestures, as if the touch itself could anchor them against the tides of expectation. Each step carried a promise, to remain true to themselves, to honor the feelings they had confessed, and to seek a future that belonged not to duty alone but to the heart. Elora stopped near the pond, looking at the reflection of the twin moons on the water. "I do not know what tomorrow brings," she said, "but I know one thing clearly. I choose this. I choose us." Ryan's chest tightened. "Then we are together, no matter what." The garden had become more than a refuge. It was now a place of decision, of courage, of choice. Within its boundaries, the princess could step out of the chains of duty and embrace her own heart. And Ryan, the humble human worker, could stand not as a subject or servant, but as a partner, equal in the freedom of thought, feeling, and hope. When they parted that night, their hearts were lighter, though their minds knew the challenges had only begun. They carried the bond in their thoughts, letting it grow stronger with each day they shared. Courage had been chosen. Choice had been made. And in that, the first step toward a life together had begun. The first light of dawn stretched across the palace gardens, painting the crystal trees and shimmering ponds with soft gold. The air was filled with the gentle rustle of leaves and the song of water flowing through the streams. In that quiet morning, the hidden garden felt alive in a way it never had before. For Ryan and Elora, it was more than a place of beauty, it had become a place of courage, a world where dreams could take root. Elora stood near the largest pond, her reflection rippling across the water. The silver of her skin caught the early light, and her eyes glimmered with determination. Today felt different from all the other mornings. The garden no longer felt like a secret escape. It felt like a beginning. Ryan approached, carrying a small bundle of freshly picked flowers from the colony fields. "Good morning," he said softly. "The flowers reminded me of you." Elora smiled, and for the first time, her smile was not careful or measured. It was free, unrestrained, and full of warmth. "Thank you, Ryan. They are beautiful. Just as your presence makes this place more alive." He handed her the flowers, and their fingers brushed gently, sending a quiet thrill through both of them. They walked along the familiar path, speaking little, for words were not always needed. The garden itself seemed to understand them, the streams and trees joining silently in their hope. Weeks had passed since they confessed their feelings, and the weight of the court's expectations still lingered. The queen had noticed Elora's quiet strength, and the advisors whispered among themselves, unsure how to respond to a princess who dared to dream differently. But Elora had learned to navigate their watchful eyes. She carried herself with grace, fulfilling her duties while secretly preparing for a life she had chosen. Ryan, too, had grown stronger. The bond they shared had given him courage he never knew he possessed. He no longer hesitated when facing the challenges of his work on the farms, and he no longer feared the judgment of others. The garden had taught them both that bravery often comes in quiet moments, in choices made against fear. One afternoon, while tending to a small section of the garden near a sparkling waterfall, Elora spoke. "Ryan, I have thought much about our future. The world beyond this garden is vast and uncertain. But I do not wish to hide any longer. I want to face it with you." Ryan's eyes lit with hope. "Then we will face it together, whatever comes. I will not let the world separate us." They spent the day walking through the garden, planning quietly. They spoke of the home they would build together, not grand and distant, but simple and full of life. Fields stretching under wide skies, crystal clear ponds, and flowers of every color. They spoke of journeys to see the stars, of learning and sharing, of a life filled with freedom, laughter, and care. As the moons rose again that night, the garden was bathed in silver light. They sat by the pond, hands close, hearts closer. Elora spoke with certainty now, a quiet fire in her voice. "I have decided, Ryan. No matter what the palace says, no matter the rules, I will find a way to live as Elora, free to choose, free to love." Ryan took her hand gently, holding it as if anchoring both of them to this moment. "And I will stand with you, always. Your courage gives me courage. Your heart gives me hope." In the days that followed, subtle changes began to ripple through the palace. The queen observed her daughter with careful thought, noticing not defiance, but strength and wisdom. Elora carried herself with confidence, fulfilling her royal duties while quietly shaping a path toward her chosen life. The advisors grew cautious, realizing that this princess was not easily swayed, and some even admired her resolve. Ryan continued his work on the farms, but now every task carried the weight of purpose. Each seed planted, each tool repaired, every sunrise and sunset was filled with the promise of a shared future. The garden, once a hidden refuge, had become a symbol of hope for both of them. One morning, as the first light of the twin moons reflected on the pond, Elora turned to Ryan. "Do you know what gives me the most hope, she asked. Ryan shook his head. It is not the stars, or even the freedom I seek. It is this: the knowledge that someone stands beside me, someone who believes in me without question. That someone is you, Ryan. He felt warmth spread through him, a quiet joy that had nothing to do with power or recognition. And you give me the same, Elora. You have shown me what it means to be brave and to dream. With you, I am more than I ever was alone. Together, they spent that day in the garden, walking among the flowers, listening to the water, and speaking softly of hopes and dreams. Every conversation, every touch, every shared moment reinforced the bond they had built. It was more than love, it was understanding, trust, and the courage to choose a future not dictated by others. As the sun set, casting golden light across the crystal ponds, Elora looked at Ryan and smiled. Tomorrow is uncertain, she said, but we have today, and today is ours. Ryan nodded. And tomorrow will come, as it always does. But whatever it brings, we will face it together. The garden became a sanctuary not only of beauty but of strength. In its quiet spaces, the princess and the human worker found hope, courage, and the freedom to choose. And in that hope, they discovered something more powerful than any rule, any expectation, or any wall: the truth that hearts, when joined in trust and love, can shape their own destiny. As the moons rose high, and the stars appeared above the palace, both of them looked at the sky and imagined a life beyond it. Fields to explore, streams to follow, and a home where their hearts could be free. The dawn of hope had arrived, not as a distant dream, but as a reality they were building together, step by step, hand in hand.